You like that countdown thing?
I do like the countdown.
Yeah. So I'm here with James Morgan today, and we're going to talk about some good stuff for you guys: data, information, some other things, and hopefully you get some value out of it because this is stuff that you can share with your sellers, right?
Absolutely, sellers and buyers. I think that what we're going to talk about today are conversations that if you haven't already started having with your clients out there, if you're out there working, you should be having them. And when you do get new clients, setting expectations is going to be really important moving forward. So definitely think you're going to be talking about what we're going to be talking about today all throughout the year.
Oh, absolutely. So if we take a look at, this is our coaching monthly report for January, and this is kind of the snapshot of everything that's going on, right?
Okay.
And so looking at it, new listings are down 5%, which isn't that big of a deal. Pending sales, 13.8%. Closed sales, 29.7%. The two that kind of jumped out at me were days on market was up 20% from 36 average days, now up to 43. And then inventory of homes for sale is actually up. Month supply of inventory is up 33.3% year over year.
Absolutely. So yeah, seeing that the months of inventory at 33.3% positive, that along with the days on market climbing, right? But also with what's the one that jumps out at me in this is percent of list price received, down 1.8%. Not even a huge change, but those are all indicators of what we're in right now, which is the shifting market, right?
Yeah, so if we go back up to new listings are only down 5%, but then if we look at inventory and days on market is up, so what does that tell us? That means that homes are actually sitting longer than what they would because they may be overpriced.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Yep. And that kind of stems from agents not reacting to what's going on in the market, right?
Yep.
And so if we pull back down to that window, which is inventory of homes, this is something I've been hitting with my agents really the last 30, 60 days, because if we look at from February to April, inventory of homes is all single digits. February year over year, it's 3%. March is 5.1%. April, it's 6.5%. But then when we get to May, which is when that spring market takes off, it jumps up to 14.1%. So if you got people sitting on the fence thinking, hey, I want to kind of wait to sell, I want to wait till spring. Okay, sure, you may be able to do that. But if you look at the inventory, which means your competition, it almost triples from April to May and then June. So you're going to have 3 times as much competition as you would if you were to decide to sell right now.
Exactly. And that's that conversation that, we do have with sellers all the time when they're thinking about selling. Granted, look, nobody likes moving in the wintertime, right? But we get it all the time. I'm going to wait till spring to sell. And this is why, as agents, we need to know these numbers, because we can use these numbers and say things like, well, look, would you be surprised if I told you the opposite was true, right? That listing right now would benefit you more to get full market value as opposed to waiting till spring. Can I explain? Right?
And do you think agents don't offer that out because they don't have the information to support it?
Absolutely. Or, guys, this is all supply and demand based, right?
Yep.
That's really what this boils down to. So when you're talking to your seller client, again, when you have low inventory and there's minimal product to buy, it increases the demand, which means you typically get more money for whatever product there is, whether it's a sneaker, a Supreme brand sneaker or something like that, right? Or it's a house, right? So then come spring market, if you've got 20% more competition out there of sellers trying to sell their house, that's your competition. Where do you think the price is going to go up? Or is it going to Right.
And the other thing that I've been making sure to hit, because this really puts it in perspective, this goes back from 2003 to 2023, right? So if you look at month supply of inventory from 2007 to 2008, look at where it was at. It was at almost 140,000 homes that were on the market. Right now, we're still not even at 20,000. We're at 13,000.
Wow.
Right? And so a lot of my agents, and I'm sure you guys are hearing this too, that multiple offer situations are coming back. People are starting to waive appraisals, right? So this stuff is happening again because even though inventory is up year over year, it's still below 2 months, and there's nothing out there for people to buy.
Yep. That's right. So I know that, a lot of people, I mean, some agents, and we're talking about it, hey, we're welcoming this shift in the market, right?
Oh yeah.
Because as inventory climbs, and I granted, we'll talk about interest rates in a second, in a little while, but these issues affect everything, right? It affects the buyer's purchasing power, it affects the seller's bottom line. So we have to adjust as we move forward, for sure. So I think as buyers too, we just talked about sellers a little bit, but buyers, with this situation coming up to where we still, although inventory is climbing, it's still low based on the demand. It's still low, but buyers will have more choices, which will be great. But your purchasing power has decreased because of the higher interest rates. So for a buyer, if you're out there, something you need to be thinking about, or as agents, we should be talking to our prospective buyers about is, one, you got to get pre-approved immediately. Like, you cannot waste time getting out there, seeing homes, and not knowing what you can even afford, because playing a numbers game right now is incredibly important for first-time home buyers, and I think all buyers, regardless of the interest rate. Making sure you know your numbers is incredibly important. And also, I think buyers need to temper their expectations, especially buyers who might have been looking last year, the year before, maybe 2 years now, and they're thinking they're going to be looking at the same homes that they were before. It's probably not, because if they were looking before, they were probably pre-approved for a 30-year fixed at some point for maybe 3.5% to 4% or so, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If they were lucky at the time, that was a good rate. And where are we sitting at now? About almost 7%, right? So that dramatically decreases buyers' purchasing power. So really, buyers are going to need to sacrifice some wants, and I think this is the conversation that we as agents need to have with our clients upon the first consultation.
Absolutely, but that all stems from getting the information and knowing the data and knowing what's going on, right? Which is why we're covering this. To wrap up month supply of inventory, I told you 33.3% increase year over year, which sounds like a lot, but that just means it went from 1.2 months of inventory up to 1.6. So yeah, it went up, but it's not as drastic as it sounds. And I know you wanted to cover some of the other things, so let me pull up that article for you so you can hit that.
Yeah, for sure. So the next, so that's basically going to talk about like 3 real estate trends, like I mentioned before, conversations you should be having with your clients throughout the year. And I think these are questions you'll also get from your clients, and you need to be prepared to answer these. So the first trend was obviously low inventory, right? But it's growing. The second trend is home values are still rising. And Alex, I remember making this video, it's on my Instagram, and I was joking. I was like, I'll tell you a little secret, right? And I said, right now is the best time to buy a home, because it's not going to be more affordable in the future. And that was based on, 1, interest rates rising, and 2, home values. No expert out there is predicting home values to drop. Now, I will say, what I did see is the National Association of Realtors, and we don't have this stat pulled up, but I remember seeing it. National Association of Realtors are forecasting that this year that sellers will have a couple percent in growth, whereas like a site like Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, they're predicting maybe slightly under price growth, right?
Okay.
An increase in price growth. So NAR is saying a little bit price growth, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac saying maybe decreased price growth.
Okay.
So, yep.
I gotcha. And before you dive into this, I just want to point this out. This is the most stupid footnote headline I think I've ever seen. Listing price growth continued decline in February.
Yep.
It's like what?
You always got to read it twice to understand what you're about to read. Yeah, it's almost like an oxymoron, or it's So read that again. Yeah, listing price growth continued to decline. So the growth is declining. Mm-hmm. All right. So what does that mean? So they note here, this was a Realtor.com article that just posted about last month's inventory. And yes, it is home price like we just talked about. Sellers will still see their home values rise, just at a very slower clip. So our Realtor.com article in this study read that the national median home price for active listings increased by 11%. So the median price was $416,000 in November compared to November of 2021, right? But this is actually the wrong stat I wanted to share. There's a different stat, but it's the same thing. So Essentially, you see prices are still rising. It's just at essentially a slower clip, right? So what the stat, I think it was home values from the difference actually rose from January to February. My apologies. Home prices rose from January 2023 to February in 2023. But when we compare them to June of last year, the increase in home value actually dropped about 7% compared to June of last year. But right now, month over month, right now, we're still seeing a median price increase in home value.
Okay. So yeah, I'll scroll and you tell me if you see it, but if we can't find it, you laid out the stats anyway. So, and I can include the link to this article in the description, so that way if they want to pull it up, they can look at it for themselves.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So, I mean, again, we're talking about this because, I mean, this does affect our sellers. It does affect our buyers, right? So,
Absolutely.
I mean, right? Higher
But
prices.
if you don't know, you can't share it.
That's right, exactly. I mean, higher prices means our buyers have to pay more,
Yep.
right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And so that's kind of a good segue into the interest rate conversation, right? Because I know a lot of people out there are having buyers who are saying, you know, I want to stay put. I'm not quite ready to make the move due to interest rates. So how would you attack that conversation with a buyer?
Yeah, that's a great question, and we're getting it all the time. I mean, there's so much, information out there. Interest rates it's too expensive to buy a home and things like that. Again, I don't have these numbers, but just go back and look. I mean, historically, it's still a low interest rate historically, even though we're pushing 7%. But yes, for buyers, we have to have that conversation with them that your purchasing power has decreased. We have to now limit expectations, and we're running estimates big time. So how I address the interest rate conversation is let's stay on top of your monthly budget, your monthly payment, what your monthly mortgage payment's going to be. I know that, and I always like to put myself in my client's shoes, right? I bought a home before. I know when I bought my first home, I mean, I didn't even know 4.99 was a great interest rate back then in 2014 or whatever, right?
Right.
But my monthly payment made sense to me, and I was comfortable with it. Yep. And I let my agent know that, hey, if my payment is over this amount, I cannot buy this house. We will not buy this house. So don't show us homes we can't afford and things like that, right? So, yeah, stick to your monthly budget. I don't care what the interest rate is. Just stick to your monthly budget, what you're comfortable.
That's it right there, though, because if someone tells you that, well, I don't want to buy a house because interest rates are too high, that's all they're hearing. But okay, so follow up with this. So what would you like your monthly payment to be? What is the amount that you want to stay under, right? Let's say it's $1,200. Okay, so if I can get you into a home that you want to be in and still keep you at that $1,200 a month payment, regardless of the interest rate, would you buy it?
Right.
Of course.
Right?
I would. Worst case scenario, if interest rates go down, you can refinance. But as we started out this call with month supply of inventory coming up, now that means more negotiation power for the buyers, which means they can ask for, buy down in points. They do buy down programs, lenders out there. You can ask for concessions. So there's all these things. And even if you may be paying a higher interest rate now, chances are you're still probably going to get a better price than you would have gotten 12, 18 months ago, because the market was still going up at that time. And now we're starting to see a little more of a balancing act from
you got it with the shift for sure. So you brought that up. So that's something that we need to have conversations with our sellers about, our seller clients, that buyers don't have the same purchasing power that they did last year. So, you're thinking you're going to get the same demand or, 8 to 10 offers like you might have last summer. That's probably not going to happen, right? Less purchasing power means your house might have, been bumped out of that client's affordability. So there's going to be less demand for your house. So that's something that we need to, be aware of.
Yeah, of course.
Be aware of. Maybe not price your house at the very top of the market, right? Maybe we need to be a little bit more aggressive, price it under. I mean, sometimes, we're going to see all these listings this year get priced by last year's comps. And that's fair, and that's what appraisers are going to use. But we have to understand that at that, the past 3 years, the market was like this. I mean, it was almost like that, right?
Yep.
And now we're more like this, right? The demand is not the same.
No, and it's good for both buyer and seller because we needed that balancing out, right? We can't keep going up forever. That's just not a long-term solution. So we've covered a bunch of stuff. Is there anything else you want to throw out there for any agents now that you think would be useful?
No, I think we covered a lot. I think it's just, guys, moving forward this year, Try to set consultation appointments as much as you can. It's going to save you and your clients a lot of grief throughout the selling and buying process, hands down. So look, I mean, if I'm working with a buyer, I'm trying to set an appointment for a showing to get to know them, hopefully. But if I can, my first priority is to sit down at a consultation, talk about the home buying process, what it entails, their questions and concerns, right? Talk about listings, talk about budget, play with some numbers, really give them a good idea before they even enter into this market, because like you said, we're already seeing multiple offer situations above list price for clean and move-in ready homes.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Yep.
So
and we're now in a market where it's not really up for negotiation not to know the information, not to know the data, not to know the market stats. You have to be aware of what's going on, because in past, the market's going up. We all know that. We don't really have to pay attention to how much, but now the market has shifted, so you have to pay attention to these numbers. You should be looking at these data points that come out every month from RealComp and providing them to your clients, because again, data is value. And we're going to have to do another video on expectations, because that's like a whole nother thing. But we dumped a bunch of value guys on you guys. We gave you a bunch of information. I'll include the links to the stuff that we pulled up, so if you want to check them out, they'll be there. So thanks, my man, live from the coffee shop. I love it.
I'm glad.
And we'll be doing this again for sure. So I hope you guys got some value out of this, and thanks for watching.
Thanks, Alex.